January 28th, 2024. Quite possibly the best day of Test cricket ever, especially if you are English or West Indian and a cricket fan. Two of the most historic Test matches, both won away from home in the harshest of environments, both heavily against the odds. Both the Australian men and women side lost at home, quite remarkably, and England beat India in Hyderabad, which is over on the Dibbly Dobblers playlist and has been discussed in a lot of detail there. But to go through the Gabba test with us here, the one in Australia where the West Indies won for the first time in 27 years, is Lucas Smith, who I will ask by saying, you were not one of the faithful ones at 4 a.m, were you?
No, unfortunately not. I couldn't quite make it at 4 a.m, but I did catch on as early as I could, and I did manage to see the last couple of wickets fall, which was nice.
Yeah, you watched the penalty shootout, but not the game leading up. Fair
exactly.
enough. Anyways, we'll get to the end of the game after we've gone through the beginning. So West Indies essentially batted first. They were 64 for 5 until 70s from Josh De Silva and Kevin Hodge got them to 311, which is a decent score for them on the Australian wickets. The Aussies then found themselves in a similar position at 54 for 5 until 50s from Khawaja, standard, Alex Carey, less standard, and a career best score of 64 for Pat Cummins, got them to 289. But Cummins wasn't done there yet. He decided to do a Bazball declaration when there was still 1 wicket left, although it was Josh Hazlewood, who isn't exactly Brian Lara. The West Indies, however, were still in the lead at that point, but it didn't really matter because when they came out to bat, they only managed 193, never really got going. But more crucially, their fast bowling sensation, Shamar Joseph, got retired hurt at the end, number 11. He didn't actually return to field on day 3, following a Mitchell Starc Yorker that I think severely injured his front toe, might have split it. I don't think it was fractured though. But Shamar wasn't going to be stopped. He came out on day 4, took some injections from the physio, and with Australia 2 wickets down, chasing 216, Shamar Joseph then bowled what is probably one of the best spells ever in Test history. He bowled 10 consecutive overs before lunch, and then he bowled another 2 after the interval. He ran through the Aussie batters, taking 7 for 68. He just got faster and faster and faster. His mammoth spell went on. Cameron Green, who is supposedly the next Jacques Kallis, according to Nathan Lyon? Said John Lyon. According to Nathan Lyon, he got cleaned up. Pure pace from Shamar Joseph, a guy with an injured toe. Travis Head, who is arguably the most destructive Test batter in the world, got a king pair. Shamar Joseph cleaned up his off stump, Yorker, pure speed. Alex Carey, middle stump, gone, pace. Shamar Joseph started his spell at 135 kilometers per hour, got faster and faster and faster, eventually reaching high 140s. I think he even touched 150 at one point. But Lucas, man, with an injured toe and literally hobbling around the outfield, yet still charging in ball after ball after ball, he wasn't even meant to be on the ground. How on earth did he manage that?
I don't know. It's really reminiscing of the great old West Indian fast bowlers. You think the likes of Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, all these, Malcolm Marshall, obviously a bit before our time, but they definitely give off that same kind of gnarly impression and grit. But yeah, it was really impressive to watch. I mean, obviously, no, you don't want to get a Mitchell Starc searing Yorker, smashing into your toe. That's not exactly ideal. But to have the courage to actually come out and bowl at that speed is quite simply remarkable.
Especially with that injury. Agreed. But despite Steve Smith's exceptional 91 unbeaten, which a lot of people forget, understandably, the West Indies, excuse me, the West Indies won by 8 runs when Shamar Joseph came in, got another bold dismissal, knocked out Josh Hazlewood's off stump, although it was just Josh Hazlewood. Then Shamar Joseph ran even faster around the Gabba outfield like a man possessed. They were all just chasing him like a last-minute winner. West Indies got their first ever Test win on Aussie soil since 1997. Back then, Curtly Ambrose and Courtney Walsh were actually playing. There were tears in the eyes of Brian Lara. Carl Hooper was tearing up. Ian Bishop was crying. How much does this actually mean for cricket in the West Indies and the Caribbean region overall?
It's absolutely massive. I think, just the decline in West Indies Test cricket in the last kind of even 15, 20 years has been quite remarkable, really. I mean, it's not something anyone would have seen then or seen coming then. But I mean, this does so much for West Indian cricket, being the World Test champions away from home. They're Australia's first home defeat since, I think, 2021. And the first under Pat Cummins as Test skipper. You know, having been, I think they actually had 7 uncapped players in their squad for this tour, being written off completely. And actually, just to mention that, a few of those starred. I mean, you look at the likes of Kaveem Hodge, obviously Shamar Joseph, but these guys really stood up. Even Kevin Sinclair, actually, who got quite the celebration as well, doesn't he? But yeah, I just think this will shine such a bright light on West Indies cricket, and it will go a long way to help them kind of rebuild their first class system and really rejuvenate cricket in that area.
I think it's just bringing the faith back into the side. People start believing them, start watching them. Hopefully, we can't really say much. It is, at the end of the day, just one win, although it is a big win. It is just one win. But we do hope they can turn the page. But through the dark times, they have had quite a bit said about them. The West Indies skipper Craig Brathwaite, at the end of the game, he said his side was inspired by the words of an ex-Australian player, Rodney Hogg, who called his team pathetic and hopeless. Craig Brathwaite then went up to I think he was giving the press conference, like post-match press conference at the end. He flexed his bicep and he literally said, "Are these muscles big enough for him?" It kind of gave off like Tony Gregg vibes with Rodney Hogg, when Tony Gregg said all those years ago he's going to make the West Indies grovel. But yeah, Lucas, how much disrespect has the West Indies team got, with possibly a bit unfairly, despite their form, a bit unfairly, they got a lot of disrespect for what is clearly a very talented side and clearly a very talented cricketing region?
Well, I think it's been like, it is quite unfair criticism, I think, and unjustified as well. Obviously, West Indies cricket hasn't been in the place that it wants to be from a test cricket standpoint in the last few years, but West Indies as a cricketing country, when it comes to test cricket, is so important and so fundamental in test cricket, that being disrespectful towards it is kind of slagging off test cricket. And look, I mean, they've just proven why you should never write the West Indies off, even with such a poor record in the last few years. You know, they go and produce that with, like I said, quite a big group of supremely young and talented players, which is, you know, very, very exciting from a West Indies standpoint. And certainly, they can certainly hold their heads high and shut a few people up.
Yeah, agreed. A bit more on Shamar Joseph, though. To be honest, right now I can't honestly get enough of him, which makes sense. Last week when he got his FIFA, we spoke about his background from a logging village in the Amazon and going to the heights of the world game in 12 months. He's never bowled with the pink ball before, but he finished as player of the series, 13 wickets at an average of 19. But clearly, the 24-year-old young man now is hot property. A lot of teams and leagues want him, very sought after prospect. I think he's already signed for the ILT20 somewhere, God knows what side. He's also going to link up with the West Indies white ball head coach Darren Sammy in the PSL for Peshawar Zalmi. So that's my side. I'm pretty chuffed about that. But Shamar did promise after the West Indies win that Test cricket would always be his priority, which I have heard before from a lot of players, I must say, and it hasn't always turned out like that. But how do you think the West Indies, or there've even been shouts that the Guyanese government should ensure that somehow Shamar Joseph is safe for the future of West Indies cricket in particular?
I think not just him. I think that the West Indies really need to nurture and continue to give these players opportunities to shine. I mean, this is certainly going to help viewership in the West Indies and kind of bring spirit back into West Indian Test cricket. And for me, if the West Indies are healthy in Test cricket, you can't. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find like a better kind of place to be as a sport. And I think, like you said, them being able to keep hold of these players and keep them fit is going to be essential for them to keep providing this excitement and potential.
Yeah, how do you think they could go about that though? Like, there've been shouts that Cricket West Indies, with a couple of, especially fast bowlers in particular, who like Shamar Joseph and maybe a couple of others, there should be some sort of like compensation, or not compensation, but some sort of extra financial motive in particular, like a healthier contract or something, to make sure that they don't overwork themselves and get themselves injured and burn themselves out earning money overseas. Instead, they can keep them fresh for West Indian cricket and stuff like that.
I mean, it's kind of difficult to say exactly what would and what wouldn't work. There's a few options, like you said, offer more lucrative central contracts, or just at the end of the day, I don't think there's a lot a board can do to keep hold of players. At the end of the day, it is down to what the players want, and if the players want to go and make a load of cash in these T20 leagues and then play for the West Indies on the side, that's their decision. There's not, for me, regardless of whatever country, and obviously the West Indies aren't in the best financial state, but regardless of who it is, I think it is completely down to the players' motives and what they want to achieve in their career. I mean, I think we spoke about this quite extensively on the Test match special. It is sad that some of these players are going to kind of down that route, but at the end of the day, there's nothing really that boards there's not much they can do to kind of stem the flow of it, unfortunately.
I see what you mean. There is a lot of heavy player power in play nowadays. Players do get a lot more power than they did before. The amount of opportunities there are, it's very, very hard for even the top boards to keep hold of their players, especially with some of the sums flying around in these T20 leagues and whatnot. But of course, West Indies weren't the only team in the game. Australia have lost their first ever day-night Test match, I think in like 12 attempts or whatever. There was a cheeky first innings declaration, as we mentioned. However, unlike the Ashes, this series actually did have a moral winner, despite Australia holding the Frank Worrell Trophy. But seriously, Lucas, where did it go wrong for Australia, or is it just all credit to the West Indies?
I mean, Pat Cummins himself said it in his post-match interview. I mean, the West Indies were just better over the course of the Test match. Having said that, and like we have said on this podcast, Australia have been known to kind of give off a couple of opportunities for the opposing teams to kind of take, and unfortunately, we saw it in the Pakistan series. Pakistan had moments where they could have grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and gone with it, and they simply didn't. And Australia were shrewd enough to kind of keep fighting through that and manage to find a way to win, which they do so well. But I think eventually, as much as Australia are the powerhouse that they are, if you do punish them when they give you an opportunity to, you'll certainly be in a very good position to win the game. And I think the West Indies executed pretty much everything perfectly. Apart from being 5 down for 64 on day one. Apart from that, it's a pretty astounding comeback. Just when you throw, I mean, the West Indies winning in Australia full stop is kind of unheard of in recent times. But add in the fact that they were 5 for 64 on the first day at lunch, it makes it even more remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Basically, anyone winning a Test match in Australia is unheard of, let alone the West Indies and the players or the lack of experience they had going in. But as you said, weirdly, despite winning 4 out of the 5 Test matches this summer, Australia weren't the same ruthless Australian side that they are at home. They weren't piling on the 500-600 scores, and they weren't just running through attacks, bowling them out for 150. They gave quite a few chances to Pakistan, as you said, who didn't take their chances, and West Indies eventually took theirs. And I think very much it was a case of for Australia, they could only trip up so many times until eventually they did fall down and give away a chance too many, which the West Indies clearly, as I said, they're pretty fired up in the mindset they were in. They only really needed a sniff to have any excuse of jumping at the opportunity.
Yeah, certainly. I think you've nailed the nail on the head there. Like, it's pretty, like we've said, there's not a lot wrong that Australia did in that game, but you know, when people are coming at you, you have to find a way to kind of close that off and prove them wrong. And the West Indies certainly had that mindset, and they've executed it perfectly.
Fair enough. The West Indies, though, as we spoke about turning a page, it turns out that they actually have they have a very decent seam bowling attack with both the Josephs, Shamar and Alzari. There's also Kumar Roach, and hopefully Jaden Seals will be back fit. So looking forward to the summer when the West Indies do tour England. Do you think they have any chance against what is the Bazball machine of Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes?
Look, I mean, never say never, right? I mean,
yeah,
just from what we've seen in this game alone, you never know. Anything could happen. Obviously, England will be very, very strong favourites. Mm-hmm. For me, my big concern, and this is pretty much with every team that ever tours England, is how many runs can you score? Yeah. And, you know, they did score 300 in the first innings, but batting in Australia isn't really the same test as it can be in England. And my worry for the West Indies is can they put enough runs on the board? If they can certainly give themselves a fantastic chance with that bowling attack that they have. But unfortunately, I just don't see them being able to put on heaps and heaps of runs, or not even that. But in England, with 250 more often than not, you are competitive. But England are playing pretty well at the moment, and you know they are fantastic at home. So it's going to be a tough ask, certainly.
Yeah, especially I do think the flatter wickets might help the West Indian batsmen, but then the speed that the Bazbowling lot score is pretty crazy. But also, do you think with this Test victory, do you think it kind of shows the other West Indian players who aren't making themselves available for Test cricket, the likes of Jason Holder? Does it say to them, hey, you know, you should be here, you should be a part of this feeling, you should be a part of this squad, but instead you're missing out? Will it put into their mind that they should make themselves more readily available for, say, for example, the England series or other West Indian Test matches in the future?
I think that certainly will kind of change those players' mind. But at the end of the day, I don't particularly think West Indies cricket will want to bring those players back. You know, they've clearly got a group here which they can trust and are clearly capable of doing the work. And bringing back in players that have kind of been Test cricket off could cause a bit of a toxic environment, which you certainly don't want. So at the end of the day, yes, I think it will probably change their view on it, but I don't necessarily think they'll be brought back in unless their record is astounding, which, to be perfectly honest, I can't really think of anyone who would have a fantastic record of late. Well, potentially, but I still don't think, statistically anyway. Yeah, potentially, but like I said, he's getting on a bit in age now. You don't want to. Why change something when it's working? You know, it's obviously they're not going to win. They're not going to win every game, but there's no point. There's no point trying to tinker and lure these players back who have already said, or not said, you know, turn their back on Test cricket. they may as well stick with the group they have now and continue to try and bring new talent through than to kind of try and chase the old ones to bring them back.
Fairs. I guess it is a case of you're better off having the players that want to be there and give their 100% than those who don't really want to be there or are even slightly undecided. But lastly, on the Test match, we spoke about it being a wonderful day for Test cricket with the 2 big away wins and with the unforgiving nature of the Test game across 5 days. Because of how long it is, it's really, really hard to have an upset. You basically have to play better to win. That's why it's called Test cricket. It's not like T20 ODIs where sometimes a few good overs and a bit of good cricket can help you win. You have to be better the whole way across, and therefore shock results are so rare. They come like years and years apart. You could be waiting several years for even one. But to witness 2 on the same day, we were very, very lucky, especially those who were awake. But what does it mean for the Test game going forward to have results like this? Does it give it a bit of kick of life or something like that?
I think it's incredibly exciting, which you know, as a Test cricket fan and avid viewer, you certainly feel a great deal of happiness and prosperity for the future of Test cricket if we can keep if Test cricket can keep producing these fantastic results. I mean, it will only help Test cricket. You know, by it is boring when, you know, in Australia just constantly demolishes everyone, and then you look at a team like the West Indies coming to Australia and beating them. You know, it's hugely exciting, and it will certainly help Test cricket from a, even if it's just from a short term perspective, it will definitely go a long way to helping Test cricket.
Agreed. It is a big saying that West Indies is everyone's second favourite team. So the one you don't support, West Indies is always everyone's second favourite team. Especially someone, I think, the generation before us, I think our parents will be the ones who are probably most happy about this, having grown up, watched the West Indies like dominate for 30 years straight and not lose a Test series for however long. Really, any time the West Indies do well, it makes most people happy, except the opposition, of course. But to be fair, even Pat Cummins this morning, he said, although he was very disappointed about losing, as a fan of Test cricket, there was a small side of him that was a little bit happy, which is understandable because so is everyone else. But on to another remarkable victory down under. South Africa defeated Australia. The South African women's side defeated Australia for the first time ever in a women's international cricket match. They secured a 6-wicket victory in the second T20 international at the Manuka Oval, I think that's how it's called, in Canberra. The Proteas, they chased down a target of 143 with 6 balls to spare. Captain Laura Woolvart, I think that's how you say it, right?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
You can fix me after, but she's been the spearhead of their batting for quite a while now. Lovely to watch. She led the way. She got an unbeaten half-century. And coming into the tour, obviously South Africa had never beaten Australia in any format. And this win comes after 23 matches in 27 years. But considering the dominance of the Aussie women over basically women's cricket for a long time, how special was this win for South Africa, considering they do have a lot of talented players, but have never really managed to edge themselves in these big games?
It's fantastic for South Africa women's cricket. I think, you know, like you said, they've been knocking on the door now for quite some time, and, you know, making finals and semi-finals of World Cups and just not being able to quite get over the line. And I think this is a perfect example of how much talent South African cricket as a whole has to offer. And, you know, like a bit like the men's side of the game, it's nice to see a little bit of competition and a bit of change. It's, you know, Australian women have been so dominant over kind of the course of women's cricket. You think back to the very start, like they've got some fantastic players. None more so than Elise Perry and Alyssa Healy, and it's nice to kind of have a little bit of variety and see kind of an underdog thriving in a sense.
Yeah, especially on that. But other cricket related to South Africa, we'll get onto that very shortly. But at the Under-19 World Cup, despite Pakistan getting no players into any of the 3 ICC teams of the year, at least Babar Azam is getting some runs in the Bangladesh Premier League. Great for him. But more importantly, their Under-19 side is on fire, having topped the group, winning all 3 games, including bowling out the opposition for under 200 on every occasion. Ubaid Shah, obviously the younger brother of Naseem Shah, is the top wicket taker in the tournament. Shazeb Khan, the opening batsman, the lefty, he's a top run scorer. But more remarkably, there was a crazy game, that's the only way to describe it, between Scotland and South Africa. Basically, Scotland batted first. Jamie Dunk and Owen Gould, the captain, got 90s, giving Scotland 270 to defend, which is a sizable total. But the run chase is where the real carnage started. Steve Stolk, he went .4, .4, .4, 4, 6, 6, 6, 6, 4, 6. And he got a 13-ball 50 in the 3rd over. He's raising his bat in the 3rd over. He got 34 off one of those overs. He nearly hit 6 sixes. He just hit 1 for 4, which is about 2 meters short. He ended up getting 86 from 37. South Africa went at 10 and over, and they chased a 270 target in 27 overs. Lucas, man, how nuts was that?
Well, I was chatting to you earlier. I actually watched this innings live, and it was just madness. I mean, look, they weren't just like clearing the ropes. They were going 20, 30, obviously South African grass banks, but going to the top of each of those banks on every corner of the ground. It was mesmerizing, and made what was a fantastic innings by Devon Murray a little bit subdued almost after something like that, really.
Yeah, it was. That wasn't the only crazy thing in the game, was it? At the end of Scotland innings, something interesting happened with the running. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so Scotland clearly had a ploy of anything that they missed, they were just going to run through to the keeper. And I think Luandro Pretorius got about 3 or 4 run-outs just in the last over, throwing the stumps
out. Wicket keeper.
That is the keeper. They try and run to him, and he just nailed the stumps every time. It was quite impressive, actually. I just want to. Yeah. Oh, not. I don't know if it was 3 balls in a row.
I think it was 3 balls in a row. The last 3 or something. Okay. They tried running bys to the keeper and just went out, run out. But yeah, carry on.
Yeah, no, just to touch on Scotland quickly, I've been very impressed with Jamie Dunk, who's actually scored runs throughout the tournament. He's a very technically correct player, a little bit on the slower side of scoring, but he's certainly got a future in the game. And Owen Gould as well played a fantastic innings. Obviously, Mapaka got him in the end, but he did have him in his place, kind of. He hit. I think he hit about 3 sixes off Mapaka, or certainly had quite a few boundaries. And obviously, Mapaka had the last laugh, but I thought he was superb.
Yeah, I think it was nearing the end of the game. It might have been the last over, and he started hitting a couple of sixes, and he was on 97 for the last ball. He needed 4 or 3 to get his 100, and he ended up getting caught in the deep, which is fair enough. So obviously there's actually quite a few good sides in this Under-19 World Cup, as always. A lot of good players, but who do you actually think will go all the way, or who do you think will make the finals or the semi-finals at least after the Super 6 stages?
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at the Super 6 group, and I have to say, from Group 1, you're looking at Pakistan, who have been very, very good so far. And then it's kind of a shootout between Bangladesh, New Zealand, and India for me for that second spot. Pakistan are pretty much nailed on with some of the cricket that they've been playing. And then in Group 2, I'm looking at South Africa and England. I think overall they've kind of shone brightest out of those teams. Obviously, you're looking at West Indies, who have put in quite a few good performances. However, those performances have mostly been headlined by kind of individual brilliance.
Yeah.
Rather than a full team effort. Maybe if they can put that together, who knows? And then obviously Australia. But for me, as dominant as they have been in their games, I have seen quite a few frailties. Obviously, they beat Sri Lanka convincingly, but I think it was it their first or second game? Their first game.
Yeah.
They very awkward. They managed to chase down, I think it was
80.
I'm just trying to find 80. Oh no, 90. But they lost 6 wickets doing so. Obviously, a little bit of a scare. But yeah, my prediction for the top 4 is probably I'll go New Zealand,
India.
Pakistan. No, I'm not putting India.
You're not getting India.
I'm not putting India through. I don't think, and that's a big statement. But I've not been that impressed by them. They have won
all their 3 games very convincingly, though.
They have, but I just don't. I've gone a bit outside the box, and I just don't. I can't see them. Normally every tournament they have a few standout players who have already played first-class cricket and whatnot, and have smashed hundreds of nose.
Mashur Khan has played quite a bit.
Yeah, I think Sarfaraz Khan. Yeah. He scored a fantastic 100 against Ireland. But for me, it's Pakistan, New Zealand, South Africa, and England are making the semis.
All right.
Yeah.
I would have gone.
There's your clip, Huz. There's your clip.
There is, but to be fair, I can't really look past India. I wouldn't be surprised if Bangladesh sneak in. I'm just not really convinced by New Zealand overall. I don't think all of their players have got the same level as the other 3. I think Bangladesh are quite underrated, but I don't think they'll make it. I'm saying Pakistan and India. I think that's the easier of the group. The other group is quite big. I think it's West Indies, Australia, England, South Africa, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, any of those could make it into the semi-final. But I do think the stronger of the sides are England, South Africa, and Australia. So I'm going to go South Africa and Australia, and then the other one is Pakistan, India for my semi-finals.
No England?
Nah, I just don't think that the spinners are quite good. Batting's all right, but I just think some of the other teams have better quality in just all departments. South Africa, fast bowling and batting is doing quite well. Do they have a spinner?
South Africa, I think. Not. I don't think they have a specialist one. I think
the skipper.
It was. Juan James bowls. I think leggies. Leggies and they have a couple part timers, but nothing.
All right, yeah, but I can't really look past Australia and South Africa right now. So yeah, but finally, to end the Australian summer, the Big Bash was won by the Brisbane Heat, ex-AB de Villiers side, which is why Lucas is delighted. They won it for the first time ever, I think, if I'm right in saying.
No, second.
Okay, the second time.
Well, they haven't won it in I think 12 years. And actually, just to go back, I have had a quick look. They do have South Africa do have a left arm orthodox spinner, but I think he bowled quite well in the Scotland game. But yeah, carry on.
Anyways, the Brisbane Heat, they were spearheaded by Spencer Johnson, who is surely set for big things ahead. He's yet another player alongside Josh Brown, who's been discovered through, I think it's like this Queensland statewide T20 competition, which has done quite well for the Brisbane Heat, clearly. But firstly, did you expect the Brisbane Heat to win, considering the form they were in? And secondly, this shortened version of the Big Bash League, or the Big Bash season, has been reduced from 14 games per side to 10, I think. And then considering the record attendance they've had this year compared to others, it's been a lot more popular among the Australian public, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, from the games I've watched anyway, they've been pretty much full crowds all the way through, or as full as you can get, really. So yeah, I certainly think it's the kind of short and sweet effect has been pretty good. I think it's also given, as much as it has been shortened, there's still been time to kind of showcase these youngsters like Jake Fraser-McGurk and others as well. But yeah, going back to your previous question, I really think, like you said, it was complete blind faith towards one of AB de Villiers' old teams. But yeah, I don't know. I had a feeling this year they started off fantastically well. They only lost one group stage game, and I just thought. And actually, do you know what? A lot of the times, teams that kind of cruise through the group stages and potentially even win every game tend to get knocked out in the knockout rounds. And well, they lost qualifier. They lost the qualifier, and I kind of lost a little bit of hope then. But they performed. I mean, Josh Brown was just unbelievable against the strikers.
Yeah, there's only innings,
and then
boy, what a time to do it.
Exactly, and he played beautifully in the final as well on a tough, sluggish pitch. It took him a while to get going, but he adjusted well and really gave that innings a little bit of impetus. Obviously got out in the 12th or 13th over, I think, but really set the platform for the Heat to go on and get a big score.
Pretty nice there. But yeah, that's all for this week's roundup. I think coming up, I'm not sure if it's this week. In terms of non-English cricket, obviously there's England, India going on, but I think there's an Afghanistan Sri Lanka test soon.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure exactly when it starts, but
yeah. So watch out for that. Hopefully we'll have some of that when we come back. But anyways, that's all for now. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week and see you later as well. See you later, Lucas.
Cheers, Huz. Take care, mate.